I'm Scott Rogers. I'm the VP of Operations, and Sharon Rhodes, who's with us, she's the VP of Legal and Government Affairs. She's going to be doing our Code of Conduct training. But Sam, you actually saved me from having to take attendance because you introduced everybody, so great work there. Before I turn the floor over to Sharon, I just want to let everybody know that we are recording this for future training purposes. And in case anybody needs to view it who couldn't be with us today. And I also wanted to announce that what we're doing today is training everybody on our expectations of ethical conduct and going over the documents that were sent out so that you can understand or ask any questions about what your code of conduct expectations are and what you're certifying. So with that, Sharon, I will turn things over to you.
All right. Well, thank you also for being here. This is quite a different experience today because we have, just a few people today. Yesterday we had almost 70 because we did the faculty. So at any rate, it's nice to see everyone, and this shouldn't take too awfully long. I think we've gotten pretty efficient at it now that we're on our fourth one. But what we're here to talk about, as Scott said, is basically our ethics and compliance philosophy as an organization. And it is really the cornerstone of everything we do and everything we have ever done. If you look back in time at our history, you will see our documents, legal documents, our catalogs, our policies, our procedures sprinkled throughout. The statement that we will comply always with all laws, rules, and regulations, and we will do that to the highest ethical standards. So it's been a cornerstone principle, guiding principle. It's part of our core values, all of that. And as sort of an introduction to that, each one of you, when you signed your employment agreements, would have also signed Attachment 3, which is our standards of ethical conduct and legal compliance obligation. So that was sort of your introduction to it, a general statement about the fact that this is really something we take very seriously and is a guiding principle of ours. So let's talk. We mentioned compliance. We mentioned ethics. How are they similar? How are they different? Well, let's talk about compliance. Compliance is pretty much black and white. We have a law, we have a rule, we have a regulation. It tells us what we have to do or what we should not be doing. And usually it's very specifically spelled out. I'll use an easy example. You shall have a transcript for every single student. That transcript shall have the following information contained within it. Boom. You check off those boxes, you're compliant. You either are or you aren't. It's pretty black and white. Very rarely do you get into gray areas when it comes to compliance. Sometimes, but not really. We write our policies and procedures to be very specific, so we know when we're compliant and when we're not. So, in addition to us writing the policies, we take the law, the rule, or the regulation, and then we write our policy or our procedure or both to comply with that. But we take it one step further, and we actually have an audit team, as you probably the more experienced career management directors have, I'm sure, experienced themselves. With we audit files, we audit records, we do internal audits. And that is to help us remain compliant all the time. All the time. We want, whether it's a student file, whether it's a particular policy, implementation, we always want to be compliant. So we do our own internal audits. It's not a gotcha thing. It's just if we find something, we want to fix it. we want to retrain, and we want to correct it. That's simply what that is for, so that we're always compliant. Moving on to ethics, you get into a little bit grayer matter here, as I say, because ethics is it's not hard to define necessarily, but it is a little bit in the application of that definition is where you can get into gray area. What is ethical to one person may not seem ethical to another, and vice versa. So if you look at the definition, just purely the definition, it's moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. So the key words there are moral principles. Well, what again might be moral to someone may not seem moral to another person. And if you've ever had a course in ethics, which maybe you have in your somewhere along the line in your academic careers, you probably got into a lot of really good discussions about ethics and what is or isn't ethical, because it can differ quite substantially between people, and it doesn't necessarily mean one person is right and one person is wrong. Let me give you an example. One that seems to be pretty easy to see the contrasting sides. Let's look at abortion. If you feel that a child inside the mother's womb is a human being, then you're going to be opposed to abortion, and that's going to be based on your moral principles, that it's the killing of a human being. What also results from abortion is the byproduct of abortion are stem cells and other baby parts, which are sold for scientific research. So if your moral principles tell you that abortion is wrong and shouldn't happen, then by extension, many in the abortion community also say that, or the anti-abortion community say, well, we shouldn't be using these stem cells, we shouldn't be using these baby parts to conduct scientific research because that is morally corrupt, because we just killed a human being. If you don't feel that that is, some people feel that the other side, I should say, thinks that it's not a human being until it's born, then they have no qualms about morally having abortions and legal and using the stem cells and the body parts and all of that in scientific research. So you can see how both sides, I mean, it plays out all the time, right? In the national news. So is one side more ethical, less ethical than the other? Well, it all depends upon your underlying moral principles and how you apply those to your own life. So because it's more of an individualistic thing as opposed to a law, rule, or regulation, which is very black and white, we just ask you that when you are conducting your duties as a career management director, that you do it within the framework of your ethical standards, what you deem to be ethical based on your moral foundation. And as long as you're doing that, that's all that we can ask. The only, of course, caveat is in this situation where something you might deem morally okay, but it violates a law, rule, or regulation that we have to adhere to, well, that would not be okay, because we cannot violate any rules, laws, or regulations by which we are governed, regardless of a person's moral principles. So that sort of gives you the contrast and hopefully a better understanding of what we mean when we say that we want you to be compliant always and conducting your job according to your own personal ethics. Now, within the context of career services, there are certain do's and don'ts that are just absolute, typically because of the law, the rule, the regulation. I want to just go through a few of those with you. And if you have any questions afterwards, that's what we're here for. So please feel free to speak up. First, this is an obvious do. We always want you to be truthful and accurate whenever you are interacting with students, with parents, with the community, with employers. Everything that you speak about, any material that you provide to any of these audiences, it's very important that it be truthful and accurate. And you might say, oh, well, of course. And I think we all, of course, adhere to that. But what I want to point out with this particular item is that sometimes we feel like, I know we all get caught up in this. I do too. It's like somebody asks you a question and you're like, oh my gosh, I should know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to look really stupid if I don't know the answer to that. So you try to give them the best answer that you can. We don't want you to do that. Unless you know for sure that you have the right answer to the question, all you have to do is say, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about the answer to that question, and I don't want to give you wrong information or inaccurate information. So I'm going to either refer you to this other person who might have the right answer, or I will get back to you after I've researched that. Don't feel pressure to have to answer a question you just aren't sure about. We'd rather you not answer it than answer it and be wrong. So you're off the hook there. Some other specific do's and don'ts. As career services officers, you're not allowed to give any financial aid advice, actually, or assistance or anything. You can't help them with their FAFSA. You can't do anything. That is a law, the Department of Ed regulation, and it applies to everybody in the institution except the financial aid officers. They're the only ones trained to provide that type of information. So I know that students get really close to you over time, and they are going to go to the people that they feel most comfortable with, and they may have a question and just bounce it off of you, and you don't want to go anywhere near financial aid. So that's one. The other item along those same lines, the other issue is it really with any area outside of your responsibility, even academics, if they or admissions, anything that is just not within your area of career services, try to stay away from giving advice. I would rather you, again, refer them back to the person that is in that area of expertise. They can give the better answers in most cases. Certainly where career services is concerned, you're good to go. Now, also sort of along those same lines is we have a lot of policies and a lot of policies in our catalog. Transfer credit policies, our accreditation statements, our licensing statements, our articulation policies, our refund policies, and on and on and on and on and on. All of those, I'm going to say virtually all of those policies, probably every single one, is written in accordance with the controlling law, rule, or regulation on that topic. So it might be a Department of Ed regulation, like with regard to Title IV, that's going to be a Department of Ed regulation. Transfer credit policy, that's going to be governed by our accreditation standards, regulations, rules. So every policy has an origin somewhere. Most of those policies are written with very specific language that is often mandated by those authorities. The Department of Ed might say, and you shall make this statement according, you shall make this exact statement must be in your policy, or this exact terminology. So whenever students are asking about any kind of policy like those that I just named or any others in our catalog, while I know it might seem helpful to be able to sort of sit there and explain it to them or summarize it for them, we would ask that you not do that. We would ask that you refer them to the policy and have them read the policy exactly as it's written. And then if they have any questions, they can go talk to the campus president, or they could, if it's a Title IV matter or financial aid matter, they can talk to the financial aid officer. If it's a transfer credit policy, they can talk to the campus president, or maybe even George McCluzak, who negotiates our articulation agreements. So it's really important that you do that with regard to those kinds of issues. Also, many of those policies are on our website and can be, of course, they're technically all on our website because our catalog's on our website. And so by reference, they're all on the website. But there's also separate areas under our consumer disclosure tab on our website that has all of our policies and procedures, like our Title IX policy and procedure, which is sexual harassment. That's the sexual harassment policy, and that has very specific, the new regulation just came out last year, and it was very detailed and very specific. So you don't want to summarize that at all. It would be hard to do anyway. So a couple of other areas that you want to stay away from, and these are more in your, all in your area of responsibility. We cannot guarantee any student, any prospective student, any graduate, any former student, anyone, we cannot guarantee them that they will get any particular job when they graduate, with any particular employer, at any particular salary. We cannot guarantee any of that for obvious reasons. And the term guarantee is the operative word. Obviously, you know the reasons. We can't do that. We can't guarantee a student, a particular graduate's going to get a job or at a particular level. So what we can do, however, is you certainly can give them a sampling of your past graduates and say, well, I can't guarantee that you'll get a job in any one of these places, but these are some places where our students got jobs. So that's perfectly fine. That's a factual statement. You've got these students that you helped assist in getting this employment, but we can't guarantee you that you will get any particular job. The same thing with job placement, career placement statistics, or any kind of data related to the placement outcomes, salary, percentages, anything like that. Please do not quote anything like that. Even if you have your own little side calculation that, you know, since you started to work, or since you started in this position, you've placed 100 students, and out of 100, and you have 100% placement rate. You can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. There are and let me explain why. Because it's always changing. So today you might be at 80%, and tomorrow you might be at 70%, because we have 10 more graduates the next day, and the percentage of the next day is technically not 80%, it's 70%. That's why we just stay away completely from quoting any kind of percentages. We can just show them random samples of students and where they've gone to work. So what should you do? Refer them to the consumer disclosure information on the website. If you haven't already been there, if you homepage, upper left-hand corner, it says consumer information. You click on that, and it's got pages and pages and pages of consumer information. And it includes placement data. Yes, some placement statistics, but those statistics, anything that's on that website, is calculated according to a mandated formula. And so if somebody's looking at our school and comparing it to another school, all of the schools will have calculated it the same way. So you're doing an apples to apples comparison. So that's why, again, we ask, just refer them to the website for that information. And then if they have any questions, they can follow up with the campus president and or Scott, who is a master at the consumer information. We ask also that you, whenever you are filling out any reports or distributing any information about our school, either in the form of a report or maybe as a pamphlet or anything like that, that you always use institutionally produced information, that you follow the reports that we have, you get materials published, that is career services materials, whatever you might be using for your employers, that all of that has gone through the institution, through career services, through the campus president or your direct supervisor, or whatever the case might be, that you don't create something and just take it out into the community without your supervisor or someone over you looking at it and approving it. I'm done with the do's and don'ts and the philosophy of ethics and compliance. Do you have any questions about anything that I just said? Pop into your head. Now, later. Okay, well, if you do have it later, that's okay. Scott's going to go through the procedures for reaching out if you do. And other than that, I just say thank you again. And Scott, you want to close it up? You're on mute.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Yeah, the process, folks, is going to be, if you ever run into an instance of concern about the code of conduct or any compliance issues, you would contact me. My contact information is in the code of conduct compliance certification. There's email, there's telephone number in there. Feel free to contact me. If you ever have a concern about a compliance or an ethical violation by a member of the leadership team, then you would contact our general counsel directly. His contact information is also in the compliance certification. And the leadership team is comprised of Sharon, Annette Howard, who's our Chief Financial Officer, Chad Callan, who's our Chief Executive Officer, Jana Warren, who's the Vice President of Title IV Compliance, Jim Paparella, who is the VP of Marketing, George McClusack, VP of Academic Compliance, and Parker Rhodes and Allie Rochelle, who are also on the leadership team. So if you ever had a problem with any of us, you would report that not to me, but directly to the General Counsel. The process for these documents is going to be, for this year, we're conducting training through January 15th. We have our last training on Friday of this week by job category. You'll have the documents to review for as long as you like. You can sign them now. Some of the campuses, especially online, I know are sending them out through Adobe Sign, so you can sign your documents through Adobe Sign. And we will give you, as much time as you need to review those documents. Call us, ask any questions, and we want to have them all signed and back to us by the end of January, which is Friday the 29th. So your campus presidents will be ensuring that those documents are all completed by January 29th. And just in conclusion, feel free to reach out at any time if you ever have questions or concerns about anything. It's what we're here for. We can't be everywhere at all of the campuses all of the time. So we need you all to be our eyes and ears out there. We trust you immensely. If you work for this organization, you will know that we trust our people to do the right thing. And if you don't do the right thing or know of somebody who's not doing the right thing, we expect you to let us know that so that we can resolve the matter quickly and take care of it. Okay, that's how we operate. And just in conclusion, if there's no questions at this point in time, I just want to remind everybody, as our founder, Mr. Callan, looks over my head and reminds me all the time, that ethics is doing the right thing even when nobody else is watching. And we trust you all to do the right thing even when nobody else is watching.
One more
Yes.
and one more comment. For any of you that might be responsible for hiring career management directors or anybody, any career management staff, this video will, we want you to use this video as their part of their onboarding training, because they should be receiving the code of conduct, which you all received, the actual code of conduct, during their hiring process. They'll read it and they'll sign off on it. So they need to also view this short 30-minute video as a part of that onboarding process.
Yes, and once they sign that, then the certifications of compliance will be signed on an annual basis as part of the annual review process every first, January or February of every year. Okay. All right. Last chance for questions.
Can I make a note for Amber and Selena? You will sign your code and your certification through your campus presidents, and then we'll follow up at a later date, and we'll put those into your faculty binders and use those as professional development. So you'll receive yours from Jenica and yours from Michelle. Same for you, Antoinette. And then Lindsay and Brittany, you will receive yours directly from me for signature. Okay.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you all.
All right, great. Thank you all. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.